Hey everybody, it's Craig from Field-Based STEM and Drone Legends, and I'm here with Mike King, who's an arborist and also forager. Hi, Mike.
Hello. Hi, Craig.
Great to have you here. Thanks for giving us your time. What you do is incredible stuff with yourself and communities and schools. So tell us how you got interested in doing what you do.
Okay. There's a long story, so I'll get started. I'm an arborist by trade. I have a German wife, and I lived in Germany for all of my 20s. I'm now 39. We live in Otaki on the Kapiti coast with my German wife and our 4-year-old daughter. During my time in Germany, that's where I actually did my qualifications. Became a German landscape gardener and then a German qualified arborist. I worked as a contract climber in Germany for most of my time there. So that was really good, traveling a lot around the country, working as a professional climber. And then when we came back from Germany, I thought to myself, I can't keep doing tree work 5 days a week. It's wearing my body out. It's lots of fun, but just the daily grind, tennis elbow and carpal tunnel in the fingers. And the more you work, the more chances there are of accidents. And also found recovery time to be getting to me. Like I used to be able to work 5 days a week and the weekend was enough to recover, but now it's like one hard day in the trees and you need 2 days to get over it. So I came up with a cunning plan of growing oyster mushrooms in a shipping container out the front of my house, which was good. Learned it all on YouTube, fascinating stuff. Just pink and grey oysters, and tried selling them at the markets and selling them to restaurants. And one restaurant in particular was really interested in them. It was down Parapara Beach, a restaurant called 50/50. There's a lady there called Helen Turnbull, very passionate chef. It's a small degustation menu restaurant, experimental cuisine, those sorts of things. And she was really interested, obviously, in the mushrooms. And one day she asked me if I could find her green walnuts to pickle them. And I said, yeah, I can find you green walnuts, but how about trying Japanese walnuts or black walnuts? Would you like to give those a go? And she said, oh, anything that's edible, bring it in and we'll have a play with it. And that was about probably going on 4 years now. So I realized that there was maybe a bit of a job there and I was quite interested in it. So I put aside every Wednesday for foraging for her. And around that same time, I realized the mushrooms was taking up too much of my time. I should have done some more calculations to economy to scale. So I just had the one shipping container and it was like 2 days of work for 1 day's income. So I passed on that business to somebody else who's still doing it today and just focused on the foraging. It was lots of fun. It worked really well in combination with the tree work because I get out to some really nice lifestyle blocks. And you go down all those long gravel driveways that you just never get a chance to go down. And there's lots of them on the Kapiti coast, some really nice properties. And the owners of the properties are all really interested in what you're doing and how the chef's using the products. And I think I was quite fortunate also that the restaurant owner was so willing to let me look over her shoulder and see what she's doing. And she's very enthusiastic, and she, took the time to experiment with these unusual plant products that I would bring in. I say plant products because one plant might have multiple plant products. If you think about a pine tree, you'll have the pine needles or the young pine needles. You have the unopened pine pollen sacs, the pollen itself, the young pine cones, the pine resin. So I noticed, I started posting things on Instagram. I realized that chefs, they like 1 liter containers. So I put things into 1 liter containers and took photos of them, just looking down on it, make it look like a product. Started making like a catalog and posting it on Instagram. And I was really surprised how many plant products I could bring in. It was really interesting. It was like 3 new products a week for at least a year. If you scroll back through my Instagram, there's a bit of a catalog back there. I should actually catalog it, but I haven't done that. But yeah, at the beginning, it's a real catalog of plant products. And through that, I was approached by gin distilleries who are all looking for new native botanicals to give their gin the edge in the market at the moment.
Wow.
And through that, they want everything dehydrated. So I was playing around with dehydrating things. And I was fascinated by that. Some things lost their magic and some things intensified. And And along the lines, I realized that we have the opportunity to expand on our native spice range. If you think about native spices, it's horopito leaf and kawakawa leaf. And I realized that we can totally expand on that. And I've got a bit frustrated with gin. I didn't find it to be the best way to showcase a flavor. It's not what it's about. It's about blending, and you still have to use a lot of juniper, and so I always found it really hard to close my eyes and taste anything that resembled what I was trying to get across. But we had our first lockdown, and we had a couple of stranded random German tourists staying at our house, and they wanted to do cooking, and so we started mucking around. And it was chocolate truffles. One of the ladies wanted to make chocolate truffles, and I said, "That's cool, but how about playing with some of the spices in my shed?" And so we started doing that. And along the lines, we realized that cocoa's got its own quite a strong flavor. It's hard to get past. So we used white chocolate. And then somewhere along the lines, I realized that ice cream has some other attributes. It's a bit thinner, so it's easier to sieve the plant material back out. And I found that cream doesn't work for everything. Sometimes you need, it doesn't work for spicy flavors, and it doesn't work for floral flavors so well, and it doesn't work for sour so well. But then you've got the opportunity to do a sorbet, and you've got coconut options, or just vegan options. So I thought that was useful as well. So I started making ice creams and mucking around with those sorts of, using ice cream as a way to showcase flavors. And that worked really well. I started taking the ice creams on my foraging tours, and people got really interested in it and walked away with a smile on their face. And so I continued doing it and started getting more interested in it myself. And it's been a lot of fun. So now I do foraging tours at the Botanic Gardens in Wellington, the last Sunday of every month, roughly. Now I've also started doing more tours here in Otaki, out in Hurutai Park. It's an old hospital grounds out here. Beautiful park for foraging. And that goes really well. People really enjoy it. And then, I stumbled into the opportunity to be on Country Calendar. And about a year ago, there was an episode of Country Calendar about a foraging arborist on the Kapiti Coast. And that was good fun, interesting opportunity. I wasn't really selling a product, so I was a bit hesitant to go on in the first place. I didn't really know why I was doing it, but I thought, it'll probably lead to something fun. And so it did really. I now, I'm guessing sort of through that opportunity, it works like as a CV or, a resume. And so I stumbled into the opportunity to start a funded project at Otaki College. They have a really fantastic horticultural gardens here that had just gone to ruin. It's a massive big greenhouse, big packing shed, a second greenhouse with heated beds for raising seedlings and cuttings, shade cloth area, pizza oven corner, bees, established orchards, native corner. But the gates have been closed for the last at least 5 years, more like 10 years. It hadn't really been run properly. They'd stopped teaching horticulture here, even though Otaki was once known as the fruit bowl of Wellington region. And so we realized that there's a lot of interest in food security and food sustainability at the moment, and there was opportunity to do something there. And so me and a learning support coordinator at Otaki College worked together to find funding, and we've been working there for about a year. I work on a one-on-one mentoring basis with students. So every hour every period, a different student comes out and works with me, and sometimes in pairs. And at the beginning, it was a lot of cleanup. It was just definitely a giant mess. And now we've got some routines together. I work there 3 days a week on it. So it's 20 hours a week, Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays during school hours. And Monday is harvest day. So we practice regenerative market gardening techniques. So no-till, good quality compost, beneficial bacteria, and just trying to make this healthy soils is our main goal. And so we're growing veggies, and we sell 10 veggie boxes a week to the teachers. That is a CSA models, community supported agriculture. And so that means the teachers pay a weekly or monthly subscription, and they receive a percentage of the harvest. And that's basically, right now we always make a really nice cellar mix using microgreens, pea shoots, and whatever else we can find. And then it's just a mix of whatever other veggies are around, a bit of a pick and mix bag. Works really well. And at the end of the year, we'll take that money and do something with the kids that come out and work with me in the garden. And then on Tuesdays, it's ice cream making day. I've set up ice cream production in the packing shed at the college. And so I'm making ice cream every Tuesday with the students. And the rule is we have to use one ingredient from the garden. And I've actually changed that. I've tweaked it. Now we have to use one ingredient that we've harvested ourselves. And that means we can go foraging as well. And so that's what we do. And then Wednesday is either planting. It's a bit of a pick and mix of jobs that I can do on a Wednesday. The latest is, we've received a next lot of funding. I'm guaranteed to carry on for another year at this 20 hours a week. The latest is the college has received funding for an alternative education program for 5 students, which they would like to start next term. Yeah. So we've been humming and hawing about how we can make that work, and we'd like to bring someone else on board to help me with the role. And we won't be doing everything in the garden, but we're just trying to hum and haw about how we can do that. My latest thoughts are, what I thought would be really cool, I'm surprised I hadn't thought about it before, it seems so obvious, is recreational tree climbing. I would love to get those students climbing trees. From my memory of when I was learning to climb trees, I think it's just a great way to get them. I mean, obviously it's exciting and there's a lot of adrenaline, and it's something that potentially they'll be interested in purely because of that. But I think it's just a great way to, once they're up the tree, it's scary up there, so they'll be nervous, and they'll be looking at me for guidance. And so I can imagine it's just a great way for them to have to take me on as a mentor, at least in that respect. And then it's different in rock climbing that you can, once you get up the top of the tree, you can sit there and take a break and just breathe and relax and let your heart come down. And in that situation, they'll just be chatting with me, and we'll be talking a bit of this and a bit of that. And I can imagine that something that could work. So that's me.
Just want to ask a question, because I'm not a forager or much of a foodie myself. When you say oyster mushrooms, are they oysters or are they mushrooms?
They're mushrooms. So
they're mushrooms. Okay.
Yep, it's a variety of mushroom that grows on dead wood. So it's like a shiitake in that respect. Is the varieties of mushroom that you would a lot of people know them as mushrooms that you would grow on logs. So drilling holes in logs, inoculating them. But in a commercial grower, they use like a polytubing bag, maybe sort of that sort of thickness, stuffed full of sawdust, and they inoculate that. And it's basically like making a fake log. And they would do that rather than a normal log, because the mushroom can inoculate the bag a lot quicker than it can the log, because the sawdust is so loosely compacted. So they
inoculate, what do you mean?
Colonize or consume.
Okay.
The mycelium consumes all the nutrients in the sawdust, and then it's stimulated to grow towards oxygen. So you put holes in the side of the bag, little pinprick holes, and the mushrooms explode out the side of the bag like in a giant cluster. They're beautiful, beautiful looking mushrooms. And you can get oyster. There's about 7 commercial varieties of oyster mushroom, and some of them are amazing. You can get bright blue ones and bright yellow ones, and these bright pink ones, really, really beautiful bright pink ones. But in New Zealand, we can only get a couple of varieties. We can get the grey ones, which are the most common ones, and the pink ones.
So when you go and do this foraging, you see, people were nice. They let you go and do that. You always asked permission to go on someone else's land down these long driveways. You don't suggest that other people should just go wandering into some rogue forest somewhere?
Yeah. Well, I mean, my issues were generally to do with, I was commercially foraging. So I was very
Mm.
restricted in where I could forage in the first place. I can't forage along the shoreline and the beachfront. That's all covered under MAF. I can't forage in parks and reserves. I was generally restricted to either foraging along the roadsides, which is an issue with contamination from the roads, and just sort of random spots that I guess no one would care about. It's a bit of a grey area, I suppose. So there was more concern with commercial foraging generally, but privately you're not allowed to pick things in parks and reserves. But I guess it's all a question of quantity and scale, and I don't think anyone's too concerned if someone picks a little bit of chickweed in the park.
So, Mike, you and I both have the amazing opportunity to go into schools and work with teachers and do professional development for teachers and expose them to the things that we're interested in and spins our wheels. And with you, with food foraging and everything that you know, tell us about some of the things that you do with teachers to open the doors to making science come alive.
Well, I'm new to the STEM team, and I haven't actually gone out and done any STEM work yet. I'm booked in next term, which I'm pretty excited about.
Exciting.
And I guess what I'm picturing what that we'll be doing will be, we'll definitely be having a nosy around the school premises, looking for plants. And it really is, I guess, the biggest surprise that I've had through the last few years foraging has been the realization that there are so many flavors, unique flavors all around us that we've never tried on plants that we all know, which is pretty exciting stuff. So even when we're in a school where you think might be a barren landscape, I bet you there's still some really good stuff that we can play with. And then I'd like to go out and about. I'd like to coastlines, try and go to some different environments. Coastline's always a really interesting and different environment where there's lots to talk about. Obviously, we can go to some bush or go to a park. Maybe there's things in private gardens too. You know, there's really interesting things, some exotic things in private gardens as well as the native things. So we'll go out and about and have a look around. And then I would like to potentially make some ice cream, or we could make some chocolate truffles. Or another thing that I find really works well is to make a chai tea to showcase a lot of flavors. Just to heat up some warm milk, some sweet milk, put a bit of sugar or honey in it to help carry the flavors, and maybe play with a bit of those things. Other things I can talk about is obviously running or setting up gardens. I love to chat about the idea of, I mean, I think it's all good if schools or communities like to start up community or school gardens. I really like to talk about the idea of potentially making it a for-profit CSA model garden where they just let a really good grower who knows what they're doing on school land go try and make a profit for themselves. I think the school would benefit, or the kids would benefit more from having a community garden that potentially will at some stage drop off and just end up being 6 silver beets. So that's something else I like to talk about, and I guess just my experiences. And I'm not an expert yet, and we are not a for-profit garden either. But I can chat about those sorts of things, and I can also chat about oyster mushrooms and my experience cultivating mushrooms.
I love that you've got all this practical experience of working in a high school and making a garden initiative actually successful, and then growing, as you say, your own mushrooms and doing flavored ice cream with these different unique things that can be found either in the local environment or out and about. I just love that this will be a practical experience from your own success. I love that. And also, I guess there are some failing forward, some things that have been challenges that you've learned from failure and how you've tweaked things along the way. Tell us about some of those surprises that you thought, I can learn from that.
That's a good question, I suppose. Some surprises that have come up. Well, I guess at the beginning, just the funding application side of things, I had never dealt with funding applications. It was a fascinating experience in itself. Like we were invited along to, it's like a speed dating style funding application, or funding, not application, but funding events where the fundees sit on one side of the table and the funders on the other side, and you give each other your spiel and try and find the right direction, who can help. And then what I found scary about it all is I was kind of by myself, and I still sort of am. I mean, I do have the contact person at the college, but I also really have no curriculum or no one to tell me where to go and what to do. It's been fascinating to have such creative freedom. I've never experienced that, and that's been something to get my head around. And I noticed that the more interesting and the more creative ideas that I can come up with, the people just get excited about it, and the funding seems to be there. So that's been a really interesting side of things. But what else? I don't know. Yeah, that's all I got.
So just as we wrap up, Mike, I think this is pretty incredible that teachers get to have this opportunity to be with someone who's actually really out there working in a successful garden, foraging for food, doing it commercially as well. What's one thing, if there's a teacher who's thinking, this sounds interesting, I want to get hold of Mike and field-based STEM, what would you tell them is one thing that would be really helpful them to learn up about or do some research about before they start one of the initiatives like you're doing?
In a garden, I would say it'd be a really good idea to go on a regenerative market gardening course. It's really blew my mind to go. I went on a week-long course run by For the Love of Bees Trust. They run a regenerative market gardening course. They're based in Auckland, but they run them all over the country. And that was really eye-opening for me. I mean, I've been working as an arborist for 15 years and really had no idea about soil science and just bacteria, and it's all just a big, it's all connected. And that really helped me wrap my head around it all, because I've never grown veggies before, and just threw myself in this project, and that really helped me, give me some guidance.
Okay, yeah, that's really great. Well, Mike, don't go anywhere, just so we can have a little chat after we finish up. But for those of you watching the recording, if you'd like to engage with Mike and all of his experience and hopefully make some delicious ice cream as well as going on an amazing field-based STEM, you can check out the website, which is directly below in the ticker the banner that's going across on the screen. So field-based-stem.kiwi. It's also in the show notes here on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and wherever else you might be watching the video as well. And also you can check out Mike's Instagram, which has been on the screen for quite some time. I love Mike's Instagram, and everything that he's talking about is actually on there. Yeah, it's fantastic. So we'd love to engage with you, teachers and principals, and those of you who'd like to develop a PLD application. Remember, the Ministry of Education can fund amazing people like Mike to spend time with you and your teachers in your schools and make science come alive, make technology and engineering and mathematics come alive through field-based STEM. So we look forward to engaging with you before we meet you in your school. Mike, thanks very much for being with us this evening.
Thanks, Greg.